We get a little bit of a different hue as a new friend joins us for another episode of Friendship Friday.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie Five, and we are ready to get after it. Happy Friendship Friday as we have one of our best friends, Mr. Jim Dunaway, joining the show this Friday. Jim, thanks for joining. We're going to talk about overall Hugh's PR since he's been here at Auburn. There's been a lot of discussion about different answers he's given. Does he or does he not take ownership of things, and does he put a little bit too much on the recruiting and building aspect of things, and do you just need to win games? And then John Cohen also had a very interesting quote that I want to get your reaction to. And we're going to start off on all that in just a second, but before we do that, let's give a quick shout out to mybookie.ag. Use coupon code BARN, B-A-R-N, for a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Any sport you can imagine right now is available. You got a lot of playoff sports going as well. So take advantage of that free money, that free play, and go win big. It's mybookie.ag.
Can I ask you a question first, since it's Friendship Friday here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And be honest, because I know a lot of your message board legend, the Open says, how many times in the past, and be honest, it's not gonna hurt my feelings, have you said negative things about Jim Bamaway with my Alabama background? Ever? There's got to be a few times along the way.
Personally, I really don't think ever. I don't think it's ever happened. Now, have I seen it? And have allowed it to be said? Maybe so. But for me personally, from my mouth, from my fingers, absolutely not. Yeah. I've always been a huge fan.
Well, can I take you back to 2010 when you wrote? No, I'm kidding. I don't have the receipts.
I've busted Ryan Brown's balls before on Twitter, but I don't think we've ever had. An interaction quite like that. But no, thanks again for coming, taking time to join us. A lot of talk has been about this Chris Lowe article that, talked about Auburn kind of putting things together and finally needing to see results. And, I thought for maybe the first time, it feels like there's been unanimous positivity around a lot of the things said in the article. And that kind of speaks towards my first kind of topic to talk to you about, the PR around Hugh and from Hugh. Let's just say it's been adventurous the first 2 years. I think that's the best word to describe it. A lot of people take a lot of things he says in a lot of different directions. He's very honest, sometimes to a fault. What are your thoughts on just overall? He's been here for 2 years. The PR that surrounds Hugh, could it use a little work, or is it that just kind of who he is?
I loved your Open. Hugh's the color, and it can be a variety of different colors when it comes to Hugh Freeze. And I think last year, coming off his first year, he spent the summer into SEC Media Days and afterwards really trying to build up the progress he was making. And he almost maybe oversold things like Peyton Thorne and his ability and the connectivity between the two when it came to the offense. Because I remember Hugh's quote where he said, in meetings, I'm finishing Peyton's sentence and Peyton's finishing my sentences. And then we got into the season and you saw that relationship was nothing like it was painted in the offseason.
Right.
So I think we're getting more of a truthful Hugh Freeze this offseason. And, there are a couple of friends of mine who either are boosters or no boosters at Auburn. And I think really close friends of Hugh Freeze probably have told him along the way that you need to approach it differently than you've been approaching it. And I think a lot of people are noticing that he is taking a lot of responsibility of where the program is after 2 years. Because I will tell you this, there are a lot of people who believe Hugh Freeze has been given anything and everything he's wanted since he took over there. And there's really no excuses to be made. The administration's behind him. The money people are behind him. The fans are behind him. And there's not every program in the country, not every program in the SEC gets all that. And Hugh
No,
Freeze gets that. So that going into year 3, it's a pivotal year for him. And I think you've seen him, Kyle, change the way he's talking to the media and to the fan base. I think the accountability is up because he knows he's been given everything it takes to win at Auburn, and now's the time for it to happen.
I don't think I could agree anymore. I said that this was one of the reasons that I was excited about the Hugh Freeze hire, just because I thought there couldn't be a better fit, and he would have that support, and they would be behind him, and they have pulled out all the stops. I mean, how many times? I think I looked at it. Auburn was the only team in the top 20, maybe top 25 in recruiting that had a losing record, and not only were they top 25. They were the top 9. And Jim, I call it the suck tax. The suck tax was high on that class, this past class. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that. I want to ask you this, and maybe this answer is obvious, but do you think that if Auburn goes, I don't know, 7-5, 8-4 last year, and you hear some of the same comments he's made, do you think they would be taken different, or do you think that obviously the record plays a big role into maybe some people sort of being on edge, looking for him to kind of slip up and say something?
Well, I think traditionally in our state, and I speak as a guy who's been in the media for over 30 years here, that I often feel like the Auburn coach sometimes has to thread a needle a little bit better with the state media than the Alabama coach has to, especially when Nick Saban was in Tuscaloosa for all those years. And I'm sure back in the day I didn't cover Bear Bryant, but I felt like, the media probably loved Bear Bryant like they loved Nick Saban. So I feel like Hugh Freeze and any coach before Hugh Freeze, while Nick Saban was there, probably has to be a little bit better with his comments in the media to where they're not picked apart and they're not painted in a way. And I've always tried to be fair about judging both sides of the state, but the way Hugh is with his honesty and at times not willing to take blame for things, I was disappointed the first year because we'd just come off of Malzahn, where it was flip the offensive coordinator. I'm calling plays. I'm not calling plays. I'm calling plays. Not calling plays, to the Harsin disaster. And then when Hugh started juggling who's calling plays, I'm not calling that play. I only call these plays. That was a non-starter for me, and I thought that was a bad PR hit. So I do feel like it would have been taken a little different last year, but I think Hugh painted such a scenario last summer that it felt to me like everyone bought into everything Hugh was saying, and instantly it went to, man, it's going to be 8, 9, and maybe we're a playoff contender if everything falls right, because you had that great wide receiver recruiting class. And I think Hugh brought that on himself, and that gets us to this summer where he's almost downplaying expectations a little bit, underselling them at times, like on our show, and he's even catching heat for that. I understand, but if I was in his situation, I would not come out and say, "Hey, we're a 10-win football team," though they might be a 9 or 10-win football team. But I'm not going to paint that scenario. I'm going to let it all come out in the wash.
What's funny is you mentioned that, and there was a lot of heat from his answer kind of on the spot that he gave you guys. And, we've talked about it on the show several times as well. I don't know that he was saying all we got to do is go 6-6, but regardless, the answer, the way it was given, he's been asked a similar question now about 3 or 4 times, and it's come out a lot better. Let's just say it's come out a lot better since then. So he's definitely, I agree with you. There's definitely got to be some folks in his ear, but I want to get to a specific part of this article that I was actually very, very happy. It was very refreshing to see because I know that he feels this way. I just don't think he ever really verbalizes it. Did I say that correctly? Verbalizes it. Yeah, I think I got that right. Verbalizes it correctly when he's talking about, where ownership needs to go. But this is the Chris Lowe article. Look it up. It's just Auburn football, Hugh Freeze. They look to convert recruiting portal wins to victories on the field. And this was his quote. He's talking about talent added on this year's roster. I feel a lot better than I have about our talent, our size, our athleticism, and depth. But look, we still had chances to win some big games against some really good teams the past 2 years and didn't get it done. That's the truth of it. And we can't run from that as coaches. I own it, regardless of what the talent was or wasn't. I think that's the best answer. That's the best line he's given, maybe since he's been here. I think that kind of says, look, even though the talent, you kind of answer all the angles. I understand. I'm acknowledging that the talent level was low and we're trying to build it and we're getting closer, but still there were some games we should have won, that all you can point to is coaching. And I'm owning that. Again, you're getting better at learning from mistakes, learning from heat. Maybe he's got some coaching, but I was really happy with that answer from Hugh.
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants you to take ownership. And I will tell you this, as a guy who covers SEC football, looks at the rosters tremendously with my own eye, not a former player, just a fan. Auburn's roster hasn't looked like the top half of the SEC in a long, long time. And that is a fact. So Hugh Freeze had to come in and start bringing in more talent in an era where your good players could also leave and go somewhere else. So you may lose 3 you don't care if they leave, but you may lose 1 you'd like to have stayed. And either way, you've got to replace the depth. So he is digging out of a hole. But it is year 3 now. And like I know, Hugh from day one talked about year 3. Last summer, he talked about year 3, spending NIL money in the portal. And he's done that with a quarterback I think is going to be good, with a couple of tackles that I think is going to be good, with a wide receiver who could end up being the best or one of the best wide receivers in the Southeastern Conference to go with an already great wide receiver room. So this is the year. Now, what does that look like? You got to be more competitive. You got to win more games. You do have to go to a bowl game. So he was being honest about that. And somewhere between the low end of what he said on our show, 6-6, or the high end of making the playoffs, there is a lot of room between those two things.
Yes.
And Auburn could go to either end of that. They could be a playoff team. They could be a 6-6 team and go to a bowl game. And there's a lot of room in the middle there. But you've got to keep building that roster and showing improvement. And I think they've done that through 2 ways: the portal this year and then the recruiting. And I think Hugh, and I know this because he said this to us, he wanted to build a foundation, a strong foundation with high school recruits the first 2 years and then fill in the gaps with the portal. And that's what he's done. That's why I'm excited about this team. But it's going to come down to whether or not Jackson Arnold is the guy he was coming out of high school, or is he the guy that fell apart last year with injuries at wide receiver and a horrible offensive line. I think he can be the 5-star guy again under Hugh's system, and that's why I think Auburn will have a good season.
Couldn't agree more. I got a question for you, an additional question about the roster, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But before we do that, let's give a quick shout-out to Robback.com. Use coupon code BARN20 to take 20% off your order. If you love polos, they got every kind of polo you can imagine. If you love zany prints or you want to go more classic with solids or stripes, they got it. I'm a hoodie guy. I know it's getting out of hoodie season, but you can definitely still get those if you want it as well. And then they have, obviously, the Auburn license apparel along with several other colleges as well. So definitely check them out. Show them some love. It's Robback.com. We'll be back right after this. So talking about the roster, he has said year 3, but he does keep mentioning 3 full recruiting classes. So I guess that would be, in his mind, he's fully ready after 3 full recruiting classes. But my question to you is, I'm looking at this roster, and I kind of have a lot of the same feelings that you do. How much better could this roster actually be with one more recruiting class? It's one of the, like you said, one of the more talented rosters on paper that Auburn's had. Maybe you have to go all the way back to 2017. Maybe there could be an argument 2019 to find a roster that's this talented. I mean, it feels like to me this team looks more like a Hugh Freeze team on paper than obviously since he's been here, but maybe one of his better rosters, maybe ever, even going back to some of the Ole Miss rosters. So how much better could this roster get with just one more year of a high school recruiting class? I don't know. I kind of feel like it's now or never, so to speak.
Well, I will tell you, those Ole Miss teams were really good on the offensive line and defensive line, and people don't talk about that a lot with Hugh Freeze, but those O lines and D lines were, especially those defensive lines, were monsters at Ole Miss when he was there, when they had their most success. The roster is good, and it is talented, and you can't count on recruiting classes building for next year because of the portal now. The biggest problem with any program sustaining success is the roster is a rebuild every year. Even Georgia, who Kirby Smart has recruited as good as anybody, but he's got gaps in his roster this season because of the transfer portal, and everybody's got to deal with that. So you can't cry about it. You got to deal with it. So Hugh's going to deal with that. It's about winning this year and then seeing who stays. Who do you lose in the portal? But then who can you bring in? The best thing about Auburn is they've got their NIL lined up really good. They've got a great fan base. And if you've got some positive momentum going, then you're going to have success in the portal. People will go where there's money, where there's energy around the program, and where there's success. And all three of those things are possible at Auburn this year. I would tell you this about Hugh Freeze in this third year coming up. It's the first time since maybe 2019 that I think Auburn has a top half of the SEC talent-wise on the 22 and the 44. And, how high up can you get? Are they up there with Georgia and Alabama and LSU and Tennessee and Texas? Maybe they can get to that. Are they definitely where Texas A&M and Oklahoma are? I believe they are. I think Auburn definitely could battle for that third or fourth or fifth spot in the SEC, which puts you in the conversation going into that Iron Bowl as a playoff contender. So I think the talent's there. The problem is in the SEC, you can be really good and still be the eighth best team in this league, and having a season where you're going to Tampa for a bowl game, and I don't know how much that'll satisfy anybody.
No, I'm with you. I've been looking at the schedule, and the crazy thing, the schedule this year, and thinking about schedules in the future, and you feel like, okay, if the thing is, Auburn could win 9 games. Let's say they go 9-3, which is a great season. You play in a bowl game, maybe you win 10, maybe you don't, but that's a great season. And you feel like you're taking a step in the right direction, and you're building a little momentum. But then you look at two things. Number one, you're probably going to lose every single offensive line, every single player off the offensive line, either through the draft or out of eligibility. And not only that, the schedules flip. Now, I know there's some debate on, do they go to a 9-game schedule? Do they stay with the 8? They haven't really decided yet. If they stay with the 8, then all you're going to do is flip and play all the teams you haven't played. So Auburn's going to pick up. First off, you're going to play Georgia and Alabama on the road. And then you're going to pick up Texas. You're going to pick up LSU. You're going to pick up Ole Miss. And there's just not really – it doesn't seem like it, to me, it may even get harder the following year. So I don't know. To me, that almost ratchets up the pressure on this season even more to be there at that, like you said, in that conversation, to where that Iron Bowl you're playing for, maybe a possible 10-win season in a playoff berth. Like, it almost feels like I don't want to be like, I'm typically labeled as a very optimistic guy, and I am on the season, but it almost feels like it's a do or die type. It has kind of a do or die type feel to it.
Yeah, one of the headline writers wrote that at ESPN on the Chris Lowe story this morning or last night when I was doing some show notes, getting ready for the Thursday show. So it was Wednesday night now. I was looking, and it actually had the hyperlink said it's now or never for Auburn. And so I clicked on that, and the story wasn't anything like that, but that hyperlink was, it's now or never for Auburn. So to your point is, who knows what the roster looks like next year? If the season's really bad, who knows who the coach is next year? But I expect you to get it done this year.
Me
And then
too.
the schedule flips it around, and it's just as tough next year in the SEC because you got Alabama and Georgia as the anchors, and then you've got Kalen DeBoer, who's been in the league a little bit longer. Josh Heupel, who has been in the league a little bit longer. Who knows what
I
Beamer's
forgot
doing?
about Tennessee. Yeah.
Yeah, Beamer at South
In
Carolina.
South Carolina, good
Is he
God.
getting a little bit better? Florida, or what's
Florida.
Napier like? So it does get tougher. So in college football now, it's not about building for the future. It is all here and now until we can get the transfer portal fixed. Just worry about this season, and then come December, after the dust settles, then you start worrying about a little bit next year.
I like that mindset. I mean, who would have thought Auburn would go into this season with three brand new quarterbacks like headed into the
Yeah.
season? Like that's almost what you need to expect almost every year. Maybe not every year, but there could be flips like that all the time. I think there's a lot of pressure on this season. I think they have the talent to get it done. If they can get through that first 6 games somewhere around 5-2, you got about 4 or 5 very, very winnable games in a row before you head to that Iron Bowl, and you could have a very electric end to the season with playoff ramifications on both ends. And I think that's where it needs to be. I think if you're an Auburn fan, maybe you don't have to win that game, but you need to be in that conversation in November. And I think that'd be a huge step forward. I got one more thing I want to talk to you about. Get your thoughts on this. John Cohen, in that same article, he was asked about evaluating his head football coach, and he said, there's 2 things that I look at. Number one, are the kids still bought in? And the answer to that is 100% yes. And then number 2, are they still bringing in elite talent? And the answer to that is yes. Is there anything to take away from one of the 2 things not being wins on the field?
Yeah.
Is there any conversation around that, or do you think that's suffice? Those things if those things happen, everything else just kind of typically takes care of itself.
I'll tell you why the answer is what it is. And it's because, unlike some athletic directors who are business leaders, John Cohen is a former coach who
There you
was
go.
very successful at Mississippi State. So what he is telling you is that I can tell, as a former elite coach, a championship winning coach in the Southeastern Conference, I can tell you what's important that will bring wins eventually. And is buy-in, and are we recruiting the right players? Are we really recruiting talented players? And a coach can tell that. And a coach can see through BS too, by the way. He knows coach speak. Nobody knows coach speak better than coaches. And
True.
John Cohen is a coach. So Hugh Freeze may be able to paint a picture for the Jim Dunaways of the world, but his boss is a coach. And he's got to be flat out upfront with him. And Cohen can tell you right off the bat, it's about the players being bought in. Do they still believe the coach is selling them a winning proposition, or is he a medicine man? Is he selling him something out of the back of his trunk? And is the coaching staff evaluating talent and bringing in the right players to win in the SEC? And so far, Cohen says yes, he sees that in Hugh Freeze. So that's a positive. You're not going to BS a former coach of John Cohen's side. So in that sense, it's not a strictly number that he's got to hit for wins, because he can see through the BS. And honestly, that may actually hurt coaches like Hugh Freeze, because not all 8 wins look the same, right?
Yeah.
But on the flip side, 8 wins against a certain number of teams and a certain buy-in could help Hugh Freeze out. So if I was a coach, I'd like having another coach as my athletic director, because they've been there, they know what's real and what's not real.
That's a great perspective that I guess I didn't think about when I first read that. And to your point, when you really talk about the players buying in and how are players still buying in after the adversity, and the answer is yes. I mean, you just you don't have to look any further than portal losses. Are you losing guys that I call quote unquote foundational depth, guys that you are maybe not necessarily depending on right now, but you are depending on maybe next season, or they're definitely part of the plans that you have moving forward. And I really can't point to one that I feel like you could have lost one in Amaris Williams, but you saved him. He went out and came back in. But I think you've had that buy-in, and you're right. They're hanging in there, and I think that like you said, a coach can see that. And those are the small things that if you do the right things on the field, these things will kind of take care of themselves. So,
and I want to just add that the one thing that I don't think Auburn people are talking enough about this offseason, and you can quote me on this, is about DJ Durkin and this defense, because everybody focuses on quarterback, they focus on the receivers, they focus on Hugh Freeze and play calling. DJ Durkin is an elite defensive coach. You've got some really great talent, especially on the back end on defense. In this league, in the SEC, you win with defense, a physical defense, and Auburn's got that. They've got a great defensive coordinator. So if you're an Auburn fan, hang your hat a little bit more on this defense. It's going to be pretty good this year.
I agree. He bailed. He gave Auburn. He gave that Auburn team a lot of chances to win football games last year. You can't really, if you look at the season as a whole, there's not really many games. There may be some individual plays that you can scratch your head and say, why didn't we rush more than 3 there, or do this here, or do that there? But as a whole, Durkin's defense kept Auburn in games and gave Auburn a chance to win. Jim, man, thank you for jumping in and joining us on this Friendship Friday. Tell everybody how they can find you, support you, and love what you do.
Well, it's really easy at Next Round Live. Auburn grad Taylor Korn handles our social media. So that's the best place to get all of our content that we send out daily. And of course, the live show, 9 a.m. to 12 Central every day. And then we'll be back to basketball season pretty soon. And the basketball show with Taylor and I will be rolling along all the way to the Final Four the last 2 years with our basketball show. We'll go hopefully 3 for 3 this year.
Are we going to get some Dunaway after dark during football season?
I don't know about Dunaway After Dark anymore. I've passed on that. I got something I want to work on. I want to work on in the future. But Dunaway After Dark may be gone.
I hear you. Well, I'm here if you need me. If you need me for anything, I'm here. Guys, thanks for listening. Let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll talk again soon. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay button.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.